3 years ago, we posted a video about the UFC champions you guys hated being champions the most. Well, guess what? In just 3 years' time, so much more has happened in the hating champions business. Things that would have easily made the previous list. So, let's go through another set of title runs you the fans could not stand and reveled in the eventual demise of, shall we? I'm Tommy from MMA On Point. A massive thank you to our channel Hall of Famers for all their continued support, and these are 10 more most hated UFC championship reigns ever. Number 10, Juliana Pena. If I told you that a longtime veteran who had never quite made it to the top finally did and battered the best of all time to earn a world title, you would think, wow, that's like a movie. That fighter must be beloved by everyone. But you'd be wrong because it was Juliana Pena. Despite one of the biggest upset victories in the history of the sport, fans were not having her title reign at all.
The greatest female fighter of all time, according to me, is me. You want to know why? Because I'm not a fighter, I'm a warrior.
Many would dismiss her performance as a very confusingly off night for the GOAT, a sentiment that was only strengthened 232 days later in the rematch when Nunes scored 50s across the board and completely dominated the fight.
I think she might have lost every single round of that fight, RC.
Okay, here's my...
Dude,
okay,
don't make her mad at me, please.
On top of the skepticism fans had over her title victory's representation of her ability versus Amanda's, Pena's always brash demeanor and trash talk in the years leading up to her beating Nunes, and beyond her loss in the rematch, did her no favors in terms of the popularity of her reign. I personally enjoy her over-the-top talk, but a lot of fans have been soured by it. Between that and what many saw as a fluke title reign in the first place, Pena's brief time with the belt wasn't exactly everybody's favorite. Number 9.
Sean Sherk, you're dead?
Some might say that Sean Sherk is in fact dead, but he's actually alive. BJ Penn did not keep his promise in that regard. But that iconic call-out was not met with a negative sentiment. In fact, it was cheered wildly by the crowd in attendance because by that point, fans were just done with Mr. Muscle Shark. Now, is part of that BJ Penn being the coolest guy on the planet in 2008? I'm sure that didn't help Sean's case, but it was more about his absolutely fucked title reign. So the lightweight championship had been sitting vacant for 4 years, and the UFC finally got it going again with Sean, who defeated Ken Flo to get the ball rolling on the division again. Well, he'd screw the whole thing up pretty damn fast when after his first title defense against Hermes Franca, both he and Franca tested positive for performance enhancers, forcing the title vacant again. You gotta remember, this was the first big situation like this post-Tough Boom, and these new fans who were used to hating cheaters in other sports were not happy about Sherk. His insane physique did not do him any favors either. So when the super cool and supernatural looking BJ Penn took the vacant title and called out Sherk, it just cemented everyone's stance on fuck that guy forever, as he was kneed into oblivion in their showdown after his brief suspension, never to compete for a world title again. Number 8, Rocky Pennington, another OG women's fighter that you would think fans would be happy to see finally reach the top, but her style and the timing was too much of a factor. Pennington first reached the pinnacle in 2018 with a challenge to Amanda Nunes, about that she would brutally lose in the 5th round.
Most people that watched that said they should have stopped the fight.
While always admired for her toughness, fans would find her style not particularly exciting to watch. So when she rose back up the ranks with a 5-fight win streak and earned the first shot at the vacant title at 135 after the retirement of GOAT Nunes, fans weren't exactly excited to see her compete. It also didn't help that her opponent Mayra Bueno Silva had 3 finishes in a row in the lead-up and was new blood starting on the Contenders series. A fresher start for the division as opposed to what fans saw as the old guard in Rocky that they'd already seen thoroughly dismantled by the previous title holder. Pennington would defeat Bueno Silva soundly on the cards, taking all 4 rounds on all 3 judges' cards, in a fight that didn't set the world on fire. It's sad that a veteran finally earning gold like a Michael Bisping or Charles Oliveira was not celebrated the same way, but instead with fans eagerly awaiting the end of her reign, which is still ongoing. Number 7, Balal Muhammad. There was some debate as we formed this list about whether it would be fair to include Balal, who literally just won the title like 15 seconds ago. But the perfect gauge for me on the topic was that I know half the comments would be about Balal if he was not an entry. What's funny is I am a massive fan of Balal's, and this is no bandwagon, this goes way back. Check the record, bud. That said, as happy as I was to watch him finally earn his chance at winning welterweight gold after being denied forever despite going 10 fights in a row unbeaten, and then being overjoyed to see him completely dominate Leon Edwards, and yes, he did dominate, I'm fully aware this is an outcome outcome that many fans wanted less than a prostate exam. Part of the hatred for Balal is a dogpiling from social media. Conor McGregor regularly makes fun of the now champ. There's all kinds of memes about how boring he is, and I think, like the band Nickelback, it just became cool to hate on Muhammad, despite him being a great guy. The other aspect of the hate comes from Balal's style that many fans find grindy and boring. I personally don't think so, especially in the last few performances, but this list isn't about me, it's about all of you, and you all very much hate that this man is a champion. Number 6, Nico Montano. It's pretty crazy for a title reign to be hated before you have ever done anything with the belt or even had more than a single official fight in the UFC, but here we are with this Nico Montano entry. Montano was the winner of TUF 26, which was meant to introduce the much needed and much anticipated women's flyweight division into the UFC. A massive dark horse the whole show, she scored UDs all the way through the final and became the first ever 125 champ. And while she held the gold, everybody was anticipating that the division would be owned and operated by top-tier talent Valentina Shevchenko, who was a bit undersized for bantamweight. The UFC agreed and scheduled an immediate title challenge. Well, not so immediate. Nico was having health issues which delayed the fight for a full 9 months, frustrating fans, who then completely turned on her when the week of the bout finally arrived, and she was hospitalized during her weight cut and subsequently stripped by the UFC of her title, forcing Val to wait another 3 months. Now, I'm not saying there's no fault with Montano, but it does sound like she was having some serious issues with her health over that 280-day reign. It also didn't help that the super popular Shevchenko, as well as the UFC, characterized Nico as either being scared or uncommitted.
She was trying to avoid this fight for the several times. For me, I think it was her plan from very beginning.
Whether she deserved as much flack as she got, Montano's reign was horribly received, and fans were happy to see her stripped. Number 5, Demetrius Johnson.
How dare you?
If there's any champion on this list who didn't deserve the hate that they got, it was absolutely Demetrius Johnson. First of all, right out of the gate, one of the best fighters ever objectively. He's the winningest UFC champion of all time, but unfairly, Johnson was contending with a few issues. Fans never really ended up caring that much about flyweight, and so as the flag bearer for that division, one Dana White regularly talked about getting rid of altogether, which really didn't help things. Johnson was the embodiment of fans' dismissal of the talent at 125.
It was frustrating. At the time, they were trying to get rid of, they were in talks about getting rid of the flyweight division.
Another issue that can often face dominant champions, DJ had so thoroughly beaten the best at flyweight, fans were bored with his reign, and whether it was another rematch or somebody they weren't even paying attention to because they hated 125, their interest and respect for what Johnson was doing was very minimal.
That division is a division that I battled for a very long time, and well, how do you not like these fights? How do you not like the champ?
The fans are fans, they're just fucking idiots.
Demetrius Johnson is so freaking good, and you hear people booing him.
Drunk dummies out there that, you know, these guys have been here since 5:30 drinking. I don't know what they expect.
Not to mention there's this thing in MMA where fans play promoter, and we like to act like fighters who don't draw money are inherently worthless. A common argument against DJ. The hate really ramped up towards the end with the whole Dillashaw saga. TJ wanted to make a super fight a weight class down, and Johnson, for quite a few reasons, was not keen on the idea.
He just didn't want to man up, man. You know, he didn't want to accept the fight. You know, UFC kept telling me he's too scared, asking for unrealistic money.
Based on what happened when Dillashaw did try to cut down to 125, looks like Mighty Mouse saved him from himself, but it was a very unpopular decision, and unfortunately soured his record-setting defense against Ray Borg. While fans have come to appreciate him more again now that he's gone to 1, there is no doubt that during his time as UFC champion, fans gave him a ton of undue flack. Number 4, Carla Esparza. There could not have been a worse way for Carla Esparza to become strawweight champion for a second time. The 5-fight lead-up to earning that second title fight had an impressive list of names on it though. Alexa Grasso, Michelle Waterson, Marina Rodriguez, and Yan Xiaonan, who she TKO'd to earn a performance bonus. Despite that though, the general sentiment about Esparza's grappling-heavy style was that her fights could be a bit boring. Nonetheless, she clearly earned this shot, and so she would be up against the ultra-popular Rose Namajunas. What would transpire between them is one of the worst title fights in the history of the sport. Pretty much nothing happened for 25 full minutes.
I started like zoning out like halfway through it, so
And while a lot of the frustration over it from fans was pointed towards Namajunas instead of Esparza, as she was known to be the exciting one of the two and was not being exciting, a wet fart split decision would go Carla's way and leave fans with the bitterest of tastes in their mouths about the new champion. Sometimes these things happen in MMA, but man, fans did not care and were hoping and praying that she was defeated by Zhang Weili in her first defense. She would be submitted in the second round, and fans could not be happier about it. Esparza didn't do anything wrong. It was just one of those horrible circumstances where she beat a popular fighter in a really boring fight that was impossible to judge because nothing happened. And with that topped by her known grapple-heavy style, it was a perfect storm for a hated title reign. Number 3, TJ Dillashaw. If there was ever a guy in this sport who was the definition of the live long enough to see yourself become a villain line from Batman, it's Tyler Jeffrey Dillashaw. Young TJ, just the age of 12, shocked the combat sports world when he decimated unbeatable Brazilian Renan Barão to capture the bantamweight title. He was everybody's favorite scrappy team alpha male champion, but then dark clouds started to form. A growing disconnect that was made public between Dillashaw and coach Dwayne Ludwig and the rest of the team began. On a season of The Ultimate Fighter, Conor McGregor famously compared Dillashaw to a snake in the grass over the situation, a label that followed him through this whole saga, as he and Ludwig would eventually split off from TAM ahead of TJ losing the title to Dominic Cruz. The split with Alpha Male was ugly, and lots of mud was flung in the lead up to Dillashaw's second reign, where he beat former teammate Cody Garbrandt to recapture gold. At that point, despite the snake label, a section of the fans had grown tired of the Alpha Male drama and were back on Team Dillashaw. That was until the disastrous ending of his reign. TJ laid a bit into the villain status he had by claiming he was heading down to 125 to kill the division, a chance he would eventually get against Henry Cejudo. But after an insane weight cut, TJ was KO'd in just 32 seconds, and even worse, would test positive for EPO, ending his reign at bantamweight as well, and seeing him suspended for 2 years in disgrace. All the negative sentiment about him from before immediately rushed back to the surface, and in the context of his cheating, made Dillashaw's reign one of the most reviled in recent memory. Number 2, Aljamain Sterling. One of the things they do in pro wrestling to get fans mad at the bad guys is by making them win against the good guys in illegitimate ways. Well, it works in professional fighting too, because when Aljamain Sterling beat Petr Yan via disqualification in a fight that he was soundly losing to become the bantamweight champion, his heel run began, and it didn't end all the way through his title reign. What's funny is Yan absolutely illegally kneed Sterling in the head, but fans felt as if he was milking this giant blow to the skull, acting as if he was extra hurt to win the title. It didn't help that a bunch of fans thought he should have lost the rematch on the cards as well, or at the very least, that the fight should have been a draw. You would think that beating up returning pariah TJ Dillashaw next would have ingratiated Sterling with the fans, but instead, because Dillashaw's shoulder was flopping around like a fish on your boat deck the whole fight, the fans that hated him for taking Jan's title just dismissed his performance as, anybody could have done that. There was also very little fanfare when he became the first bantamweight champion to defend the title 3 times after beating Triple C, with many dismissing him in the all-time great conversation out of pure hatred. As you can imagine, fans celebrated as he was TKO'd by Dr. Skittles and lost his title. Aljo's story is a tough one for me. I do understand the initial reaction to him winning the title, and I know sometimes he's not the most exciting, but otherwise I'm not sure why he rubbed fans the wrong way as champion, but definitely did. Number 1, Jon Jones, again.
Come on, who'd have thunk it?
If you watched the previous list, Johnny Bones was actually number 1 there as well, but it was related to his time at 205. Well, wouldn't you know it, Jon is champion again in a different division, and everybody hates it. Not that they did initially though. When JBJ returned to the sport after a long 3-year absence, despite the bout being mired in controversy over the leaving of heavyweight king Francis Ngannou, people were awestruck as Bigger Bones made beating Cyril Gane for the vacant title look like he was playing EA UFC on very easy. But it was after a very short honeymoon phase that the trouble started. Jon was set for a pretty unpopular first defense against former champion Stipe Miocic, a bout people were salty over because they felt Sergey Pavlovich deserved that opportunity considering Stipe's extended absence. Then Jon tore his pec, and so an interim title bout was made between Pavlovich and a returning Tom Aspinall, who mopped the floor with Russian Lesnar. Despite now having an obvious contender, the UFC and Jones are hellbent on this Miocic fight once Jon is healthy, despite Aspinall now defending his interim gold in the meantime. This one is still ongoing, so I suppose there's a chance for Jones to turn things around, but if he retires after the Stipe fight, there's going to be mostly bitter feelings forever about this particular title reign. Only Jon Jones could top a second top 10 list, of which he was number 1 on the first. I'll tell you whose reign is hated by absolutely nobody though. The editor of this video, Max Randall. He does an incredible job with these edits. Please follow him on all his socials and go check out his awesome YouTube channel. A massive shout to our channel Hall of Famers. May your reigns be forever long. We cannot thank you guys enough for all your support. Fight fans, hit the join button to become one yourself. There's exclusive content and you might have some say in our videos. Like and subscribe if you hate at least one title reign on this list. Leave a comment about your least favorite champion of all time. And thank you so much for watching, you guys. I will see you when I see you.